Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Jesse Kirk and Lara Myers. Jesse and Lara are two students in our Executive MBA class of 2026, and they are also leaders of the Executive Healthcare Alliance. I recently connected with Jesse and Lara to talk more about their backgrounds, their decision to pursue an MBA, how things are going during their time in the Executive MBA program, their plans for the Executive Healthcare Alliance this year, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the ExecMBA podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Jesse Kirk and Lara Myers. Jesse, Lara, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us, Brett.
Thank you, Brett.
Well, it's great to have you here. How's everything going? Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm good. Just over halfway through the program now, and I think we're kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. But it's a lot of work. But this past weekend we had our first big kind of presence to the new student body of the club, and I think we're all really excited about what the future holds.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're going to talk about the Executive Healthcare Alliance here as part of this conversation, student organization that's available to our professional degree students. I cannot believe y'all are in quarter 7. I was online with a couple of your classmates last night talking about their experience in quarter 7, the elective period. You're on the downhill side, as Jesse noted. Lara, how does it feel to you?
It's honestly, it's a little surreal. Definitely a different feel for me. The first 6 quarters were academically more challenging than I was expecting, and most of it was due to poor time management, thinking I had more time than I had. And once I corrected that and righted the ship, we roll into electives. And so I'll admit it's been a nice change, though the first 6 quarters were fantastic.
Yeah, for folks who are just learning about our program, the Executive MBA program is 21 months in duration. The first 6 quarters or 12 months of the program, first year of the program, is core curriculum, followed by 4 quarters or 8 months of electives. And so Q7, quarters 7 through 10 are the elective quarters where students are choosing their classes. And in this program, students are typically taking 3 classes at a time. And so the students have an opportunity to take 12 electives as Executive MBA students. So that's a lot of elective choice. Jesse, how did you think about your electives? I mean, you're now just started to take them. How did you think about what classes were of interest to you?
Yeah, so, in my background of, running businesses, I kind of wanted to explore more of the entrepreneurial side, and Darden offers a pretty vast amount of courses focused on entrepreneurialism, whether it's entrepreneurial thinking, or a class I'm also really enjoying is entrepreneurialism through acquisition, or ETA. So I've really been focusing on trying to dive deeper into the entrepreneurial world. And I've had successful businesses and I've had failed businesses, but you learn from your failures. So I want to gain as much information as I can as I start to think about what that next adventure is.
Appreciate that. Entrepreneurship has always been a popular topic with our Executive MBA students, and we've had a growing number of Executive MBA students and alumni who are interested in entrepreneurship through acquisition. Actually, the school just hosted the Southeast Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition Conference down in Charlottesville last weekend. Lara, how'd you think about the electives that you're taking? How'd you choose your classes?
It was really hard. It was hard to narrow anything down. It was difficult thinking. Coming out of quarter 6, I thought, okay, well, I probably am going to avoid the quantitative classes. And then I thought more about that and shifted my entire plan to move into more quantitative classes. And so I elected to take valuations right after finance. And one thing I found is I really like the aspect of valuing companies and looking at their enterprise value and all the things that Michael Ho taught us. I didn't want to lose that. And so I put myself on the wait list and somehow got lucky enough to get in, and trying to keep with things that are challenging instead of making it so easy on myself that I regret it when I'm finished. All of it's beneficial. Every single piece of it is something that I will be able to use forevermore. There are so many electives that touch on the things that I want to do in my own professional life. So it is hard. It's difficult to narrow it down. As at first I thought, well, I want to do strategy consulting. And then I thought, well, no, I want to do more leadership. But now, now I'm in quantitative classes. So I think that moving into the elective period has been both challenging. I think it'll keep changing because we have the opportunity to add and drop every quarter. And so we'll see. It may be a surprise to everybody as well as myself what I'm going to take next.
It's not uncommon to hear executive MBA students choosing their elective say, you know what, I could have taken these other classes and they would have been pretty easy for me, but I wanted to take classes I felt like, one, maybe they're not things that I would necessarily see in my day to day. And so expose myself to something different, but also do things that are more challenging, that are engage me in a different way, and kind of cross train, right? Move away from what's their sort of classic sort of skill set into something that's ultimately more difficult for them. So I appreciate those insights, and just again, kind of always curious to hear about how people are thinking about electives. For folks who are learning about this program, when students get to the elective quarter, they typically have about 10 or so electives to choose from in each quarter that are offered on the Executive MBA schedule. Executive MBA students can also take part-time MBA electives if they have schedule flexibility, and there's typically maybe about 3 or 4 electives offered on the part-time MBA schedule. So the total number of electives available could probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 electives over the course of that elective period, depending upon, again, your schedule flexibility. So now that we sort of set the stage a little bit about how you're doing, let's talk about your respective background. So Lara, I'm going to come to you first for this question. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, I am an acute care nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner for about 17 years, and I get asked oftentimes what acute care means. It's very different from a family nurse practitioner who you generally see in an outpatient primary care clinic. Acute care is built for more critical care ICU, and my career has been spent in varying types of surgery. So in the beginning, it was chest surgery, ICU. Then that moved into transplant surgery for all of the solid organs, and then neurosurgery. And most recently, it's been orthopedic surgery. So, and to focus a little more on a business perspective in healthcare, I recently changed jobs, and now I'm a value analysis manager in supply chain for the UVA health system. And so I went to undergrad at UVA. I got my master's degree from UVA. And so I'm looking forward to being a triple who. I've been in Charlottesville for a really long time. That's sort of my background. I have one son who's starting his second year in college now, and I do part-time in Northern Virginia and then part-time in Charlottesville. So yeah, it's been a journey. Though Charlottesville's great. I miss being there all the time, but it's nice to have a little bit of variety.
All right. Well, thank you, Lara. Jesse, tell us a little bit more about you and your background.
So I am a husband, father of 2 kids, a 6-year-old and 8-year-old, which adds a lot of excitement to this program. And I like to start out there because that's probably one of the most important things. But in terms of background, I graduated VCU in 2008 with a marketing degree. This is right when the global financial crisis was happening. At that time, I was working actually for an investment advisory firm. And the CEO, who became a mentor of mine, told me not to get a job right away and go travel the world. So I found a job teaching English in China. This is early days of the internet in 2008. And before I knew it, I was on a plane to China where I taught English and traveled and did consulting for about 3 years before moving back to the United States and fully moving into the medical device world, which is where I've been ever since in a lot of different capacities, from working internally, doing operations, to sales, to strategy, to consulting, to running my own business. So it's been quite a road to where I am today.
How did you decide that you wanted to pursue an MBA? How did an MBA become something that you knew that you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I was running my own business for a number of years, I always thought about like, would I see value um, in an MBA? And it was kind of always hovering in the distance, like something I thought I might need. It wasn't until I really entered the corporate world where I started to see the value of having an MBA, the like diversity and building strategies, and what comes along with the experiences you learn in that program. So one of my mentors in the region here actually recommended that I start looking into getting an MBA. He thought it would be a good next step. And UVA was the first school that popped up. The network that we have here at Darden is incredible. I don't think any MBA school in the country can compete with the amount of people that we've successful people that Darden has released into this world. I was at my wife's had a work event last night in Washington D.C. at one of the museums. It was a pretty incredible event, and 20 minutes into the event, somebody walked up to me and they're like, "Hey, you're at Darden, right? I think I saw you at that last Darden networking event with the FTC chairman." And he works at a venture fund in DC and was there to network at this party. So the network is huge. And that's really one of the main reasons I wanted to get into this program.
Yeah, that was an incredible event with the chairman of the Federal Trade Commission, just on a weeknight here at Sands Family Grounds in Roslyn. Don't get to go to those kind of conversations every day, and it was pretty full room. So, Laura, how about you? You mentioned that you're very familiar with the University of Virginia. You'll be a triple who. How did you decide that you wanted to pursue an MBA?
The minute that I became a nurse practitioner, I knew that I probably wanted to do something additional, because as we all know, once you are a healthcare provider, that's sort of where you live. And I felt like for my professional pedigree, I could probably do a lot more, but I likely needed additional education because we get some leadership skill in our master's program, because UVA is nationally ranked, and has been for a long time in their School of Nursing among a bunch of different programs. But the one thing I think it lacked was the recognition by anyone else that NPs can do a lot of different things. I think that's changing. I think the School of Nursing has done a good job of that. But I think where I am in my career, I had two natural paths. One was going to be get a PhD and teach. The other one was get a doctor of nursing practice and teach. One is shorter than the other. And but I knew that didn't feel right. And so one of my friends and colleagues, we've been friends for a long time, she's a native Floridian, and she got her master's degree from University of Florida. And she ascended within UVA Health rather quickly. And I watched that and was so happy for her. And she encouraged me to do it. Though she wanted me to apply to University of Florida. And I said, well, I don't know if I can do that. And so I looked around, and Darden has always had this stellar reputation as long as I've been around. And I probably had too much caffeine one morning and just decided to apply. I thought, why not? What's the worst thing that could happen? And I originally applied, thanks to you, Brett, for getting me out of this mistake, but I applied to the part-time program because I thought that would be a little more feasible for working full-time. And my son was still at home then. And so I don't know if you remember this, Brett, but you called me right away and said, we need to change this because this is not the right program for you. And I'll tell you why. And I thought, well, I've never even heard of an executive MBA. Is that different from traditional full-time MBA? And then you're good enough to explain it to me and sort of walk me through that process. And so I won't forget you for that. P.S. You'll always have a special place in my soul. So I think in summary, a long way of me saying that I've known about Darden. I've known people who've gone through Darden and they've experienced nothing but success. The faculty is they're fairly famous, and I've just been embedded in that culture for so long that I've felt like throwing the baseball and seeing who caught it. So that's my why.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And I appreciate your note about, apply to part-time MBA, and we're encouraged to consider executive MBA. As admissions team, our goal is to help people find the program that's ultimately going to be more engaging for them. The learning experience here is discussion-based, it's participatory, and so we're trying to help you find a program where you're going to have more peers, where more people in that classroom that have had the kind of experiences that you've had. And certainly not everybody will be at the same point in their career, but where you'll find more people. And our part-time MBA students tend to be earlier career, typically somewhere around 3 to maybe 8 years, 9 years into their career. Whereas our executive MBA students, people get real hung up on that word executive. You don't have to be an executive to do this program. Our executive MBA students are our most experienced population at Darden, but the full range of the class is typically 5 to 25 plus years. Most students, though, are probably, if you want to think about years of work experience, around 8 to maybe 20 years into their career, with the average around kind of 12, 13, 14 years. So it gives you a little bit of color between the two classes. Jessie, Lara shared a little bit about why Darden appealed to her. What resonated with you as you were looking at Darden? What kind of jumped out? You mentioned the network. Is there anything else?
Yeah, the growing up in Virginia here in the Commonwealth, I've always had a huge respect for the academics at University of Virginia. I think that was a big part of it. It's always been a well-respected organization academically. I think it has really good values, which are things that I could get behind. So when I looked at, programs in the region, the things that stood out to me the most were academics and values, and they aligned really well with what I thought. Another key piece was I live in Northern Virginia, right outside Quantico, and the logistics of commuting, once a month to the Sands Family Ground location and doing classes online really worked out well. Having 2 active kids, and my wife has like a great career as well. So it just worked out perfectly.
I want to talk a little bit about your respective transitions to being an executive MBA student. That's always a process, and you may still feel like you're navigating this, kind of figuring it out on a quarter-to-quarter basis. But Laura, what was the adjustment like for you getting started in the executive MBA program, being in that core curriculum, quarter 1, quarter 2, if you can remember back to that time?
Oh, I remember. I remember it well. I think the first thing that I would like a fond memory is getting to know my learning team. Learning Team 9, shout out to all those guys. Getting to know us as people, and then as students, and then as professionals kind of came last. Getting to know them was pretty key, and our backgrounds are different all across the board. And so us getting together initially and then sort of planning out the work for quarter 1 was pretty good. I have to say that academically I was surprised, because a lot of my colleagues who have gotten their MBAs, who are also healthcare providers, have all said how easy their programs were, that they didn't focus heavily on quantitative stuff. And I thought, oh, they'll just probably go over economics. Well, turns out it's a lot more robust than that. And it did take some time to get used to the volume of work. And again, like I mentioned before, really being specific about the number of hours spent doing what I did do versus what I needed to do altered quickly. And so that's sort of what I remember in the beginning, is time management, learning team. And then the weekends at Sands Family Grounds were always fun. Everything is everything is pretty social after hours, and then the classes are really fun. And so I saw it as kind of a weekend getaway a little bit. Don't really see it as school. It's not laborious. You don't look forward to it. I always look forward to our weekends. It's one thing I'm going to miss moving out of the program in about a year. So yeah.
You're right that Darden does have a reputation for being challenging, and you are going to have to do some quantitative work in this program. Everybody takes the same core, whether you're full-time, part-time, or executive MBA student. That's the structure of our programs: a core curriculum followed by electives. Lara, if you had to estimate, how many hours per week do you feel like you spend on school or school-related activities? What does that look like?
It's varied per quarter. I will leave quarter three out of it. That was the hardest one. But I think not having a quantitative background, like a formal one, never took any business courses. If I did, it was like econ and undergrad, which was a while back. So it took me a little bit I probably took a little longer than the average person. I will say that. But our learning team really was good about dividing up where our strengths were, or if someone had a particular interest in a case that we were doing or cases. Someone who's very strong, say in accounting, would sort of take the lead on the cases for that week. As where if it were more leadership, marketing, or whatever, we would segment that out to whoever wanted it first, and then whoever would find it a little bit easier, and those readings wouldn't take quite as long. And so it actually pretty variable. But I think aside from nighttime classes, I would dedicate most of a Saturday morning and then a Sunday evening to school on weeks we did not have on grounds residency. So it was a lot, but I don't want that to scare anyone, because I took a little longer to get up and running with the quantitative stuff.
Yeah, I think that's important to acknowledge. In a class of 125, 30 executive MBA students, you can look around. There's probably somebody spending more time. There's probably somebody spending less time than you in terms of prep. And everybody's kind of on their own journey, right? Because everybody comes with different backgrounds. Nobody places out of classes here at Darden. And you're right, every quarter is its own challenge. And listeners may be wondering a little bit about quarter three, while Lara said, well, sort of taking quarter three out of it. Quarter three is somewhat famous in the executive MBA program because it's one of the shortest quarters, if not the shortest quarter. And you're taking accounting, finance, and leadership communication at the same time. So it's the double whammy, so to speak, of two quantitative classes. And I think two of the more challenging quantitative classes there. Decision analysis, too, is another one that you'll hear about from students. But accounting and finance at the same time, I think, is for many of our students who do not have a quantitative background, come from backgrounds where they have not taken traditional business subjects in a prior educational setting. There's a bit of a learning curve in that quarter three, and it's a short quarter. So, Jesse, does that resonate with you? What was the adjustment like for you to school?
Yeah, so my background, I did take business courses and in college, and I've run my own business. But even with all that, I think the quantity, I've always hired accountants. I hired a finance person. I really enjoyed, even though it was challenging, diving deep into the details of accounting and finance. I think it's given me like more respect for the people I work with, but also has given me a deeper understanding into the strategy around how businesses do accounting and how the control you have in managing the looks of your business. So, I definitely agree. Like, I'll piggyback on Lara's comment about working with your team. I was learning Team 6. Every person on my team has a completely different background, different specialties. So it was really helpful for us when we were going into these OGRs that we were kind of picking and choosing what cases we wanted to present to the team. Everybody still reads it, but being able to teach it to your team just adds a new level of understanding of these cases, which I really enjoyed. But To answer your question about how much time I spent during the week, I would probably say easily 4 hours. I think it took me until after the first OGR, I learned about the app called Speechify. I do a lot of driving. The Speechify app changed the way I was absorbing information. The Speechify app, for those not familiar, it turned the PDF into an audiobook. So, reading through some of these cases that are, 10 to 30 pages long, it really helped me on understanding them to the point where I just created a model where my process was I do Speechify for a case, print it out, and then read it again and take notes. And that style of learning really worked well for me.
Yeah, thank you. Better living through technology. That's definitely one of those apps that you hear about a lot from students. Because to your point, many of our students are traveling or they have commutes and they're trying to figure out how to maximize their time. I think that's a pretty consistent strategy that you hear from executive MBA students of like, it may not necessarily be about finding 5 hours of uninterrupted time. It may be trying to find 30 minutes here, an hour there, and sort of keeping engaged with the material a little bit every day. And so Speechify, similar technologies can really be helpful there. Jesse, I'm curious, have your career goals evolved at all during your time in the program?
Yeah, actually, they have. I think when I started the program, I envisioned myself moving up the ladder in corporate America. And as the program went on, the entrepreneurial aspects kind of like took over. Like, I think I'm much more interested in running my own business or the startup world, like early stage companies. I really enjoy, being able to react quickly. And I just started a new job with a new company last week in the startup space. And I think it's just much more exciting. And I think the Darden experience kind of like showed me what I was interested in and what I enjoyed doing. And the startup space is a lot more, it's just a better section, I think, for me than large corporate America.
Well, that self-discovery, self-awareness, I think that's one of the big outcomes of the program for students is you learn a lot about yourself, maybe more than you thought you would learn as you go through an MBA program. Lara, how about for you? How have your career goals evolved at all?
Probably at this point about 4 times they've they've evolved into different things because Darden is such a fantastic program, but giving you exposure in real time with real professionals and executives and people who have come from different paths and even going down. I came for the entrepreneurship through acquisition conference simply because, well, one, really cool people were there, meaning my classmates. And two, Les Alexander organized the whole thing, who is our professor for entrepreneurship through acquisition. And so how could it have been terrible? There's no way. It was only going to be great. And learning about that, I think for me, someone whose overarching goal professionally is to increase their net worth, right? That we all want to do that. We also want to be fulfilled professionally. I think we're all pretty high functioning, ambitious people. There are so many different ways to do that. And for me, I think it was a lot of finding what wouldn't work for me as well. And so I know that there are some things that I probably am not either going to be a candidate for or probably am not willing to take risk the way that some of my very brave classmates would do. I'm a little more risk averse. And so, if the natural path for me would be to move into the nursing leadership in large academic medical centers. And I've been more open to that now than I was before. I think, though, with an MBA from Darden and different experiences, I've opened myself up to perhaps into operations, probably not finance, but a little more operations and strategy. And so moving into that, I think, is the flavor of the week, though that may change with my next elective where I get really excited about something different. So we'll see, but all of it is going to be beneficial, I think, for myself, no matter what I do. I can go in any direction. Now that I have this MBA, for someone with who's been a nurse practitioner for this long, the ceiling is just disappears. That's my vision anyway for myself, is that I can open up to so many different things. And it's very exciting, I have to say.
Yeah, that's a pretty consistent thread when we talk with students about, why they decided to pursue an MBA or how they're thinking about their career goals. Is just it opens the aperture, it expands the opportunities, what you feel like you can aspire to. There's just a lot more directions you can move in post MBA by virtue of having this degree and having had the experience at Darden. I want to talk about the Executive Healthcare Alliance. This is a newer student organization in the past few years or so. Jesse, how would you explain or describe this student organization to folks?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our goal, and Lara, you're welcome to chime in case I'm wrong at any point, which is super unlikely to occur. I think our goal is really to help build a network of students that are in the healthcare space, but then also expose us to all the opportunities in the space. I think a lot of us have been kind of siloed in our career, whether it's been like healthcare tech, or you've been on the care side, the patient side, or I've been on the medical device side, or we have people who have been, doctors in a lot of different roles. There's just so many talented people in our program that work in healthcare that I think there's a huge opportunity for us to continue to share our experiences, whether that's on stage or in other forums. And that's kind of the goal that I see this club going, is us being able to share our ideas in a more formal setting.
Does that align with you and how you're thinking about it, Laura?
Completely. I couldn't have said it better. It's interesting. Jesse and I didn't know each other that well until we've gotten into the elective parts of the program, as well as interested in different clubs. And this was an opportunity to give a voice to those who work in the healthcare space and have sort of been ignored, or they felt ignored, or they just weren't part of that ecosystem. And so that was an exciting part of the Healthcare Alliance, being executive students. We can see that, there's marketing and there is a lot of tech, and it's not always just about, who's interested in doing something in healthcare. It's those who are doing it and also maybe they want to branch out, or maybe they have something insightful, or how difficult it is because it's regulated so heavily. It's always changing. The innovation is always ongoing. And so I was happy to learn that Jesse and I have that same vision for the Healthcare Alliance.
And we always tell folks that the clubs and organizations in the professional degree programs are serving our part-time MBA and executive MBA students a little bit different than their full-time MBA counterparts, just because of the function of time, right? Executive MBA, part-time MBA students are all working while pursuing their degrees. So the best way to think about the clubs is really kind of first and foremost as a network, chance for you to connect with people who share a common interest, maybe a common background. Maybe they're thinking about their career goals and where they'd like to go. Lara, I'm curious, Executive Healthcare Alliance, y'all have anything in store for this year? Any kind of plans you're developing right now?
Yes, I have ideas for speaker lineup for Friday Night Lives at Sands Family Grounds. They're not quite in motion yet, but I'm excited to get with Jesse and give him some ideas, because I know he has some too. He's an ideas guy. And I've spoken with one of our classmates is married to like a marketing public speaking executive in Northern Virginia who works for pharma, or most of her clients are pharma companies. And so she, I think, would be such a great addition to a Friday Night Live, just to talk about what she does, who she does it with, what they ask of her, and what she delivers for them. because I know that we have some healthcare marketers in our program, and they voiced that they would love to connect with her. And so that's just one of many that we could do. Sadly, we're not going to have enough time for all the ideas that we have, but I think what we can come up with is something that everybody would enjoy.
Yeah, Friday Night Live is a tremendous opportunity for clubs and organizations to bring in speakers or highlight topics that are potentially of relevance of interest to their classmates. Jesse, any thoughts you'd want to share here about what the Executive Healthcare Alliance, I know it's early days, but what you might be thinking about for the year ahead?
Yeah, I mean, kind of repeat a little bit what Lara said is we have such a huge network in our program of people that we've connected with. I mean, me working in the medical device space, I know a lot of founders that I'd love to come up and have them share some of their knowledge with us, hear what they're working on, um, learn kind of like the trials and tribulations of their path, whether it's starting their company or taking it public or selling it. I think there's just so many aspects that we can expose people to that would really help them maybe get rid of some of the fear factor that maybe shies people away from the medical device industry. Like Lara said, I think a lot of people get worried that it's such a heavy regulated space that it's not something they want to be in. And I think we can really open up people's eyes that there's a lot of good to be done. I mean, this whole space, the number one priority is helping patients in all aspects. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do that.
I'm curious if there's anything else, just sort of generally, as you move into the second half of the Executive MBA program that you're excited about, Jesse. Anything that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, one of the things Lara talked about was us not shying away from challenging ourselves. I'm really looking forward to. I'm taking an M&A class coming up. I myself have not been on the quant side, but I've been able to work with people in my learning team, and together we can accomplish our goals and learn the material. So that's a class I'm really looking forward to, is M&A. And I think it'll be challenging, but also really helpful as I continue to get more and more involved in the M&A space in healthcare.
Laura, how about for you? Anything that you're excited about as you look forward to the upcoming quarters?
I'm excited to see if I get into M&A. I'm number 14 on the wait list, so I'm patiently waiting. Though I don't think that I may not get in there. But the other things, other than that, I am looking forward to. Jim Dietert is he's doing a class with us. It's more of an elective style, but so many people were interested in it that we sort of formed our own class about difficult conversations and how to have those with each other, and then building on that acumen for when we rise in our own spaces, that we can have those and not shy away from them, and then come away from them better people, no animosity. It's an important time to develop that skill. I think everyone in that class, which Jesse, remind me, I think there are at least 20 of us in there. It is.
I think you're right. I think it's 20. I mean, we actually had to limit the number of people because it was becoming too much to accomplish the goals of the class.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know. I'm sure other programs are great, but ours comes to us with interest in these difficult things that are not easy. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to more time with my classmates. Really, just now, I feel like a year hasn't been long enough, and I really respect them and their journeys. They're like our kids are getting to know each other. I won't call it family. I think that gets a little overused, but it's really nice to have this different subset of friendly people who are sharing your same path. And so I'm looking forward to seeing more of them actually in the coming days.
Well, last question for the two of you. Laura, what's a piece of advice that you would share with our listeners? Obviously, you've already shared quite a bit of advice, but something that you would encourage them to think about as they consider their own MBA journeys.
It just, if anyone has ever just had the thought of applying, just do it. Just apply. Darden it's yes, you may be self-selecting into a top 10 program and thinking that you would be surprised at the benefit that you would get if you just apply. If you just I can't say it enough, obviously. Just anybody who's thinking about it should just submit an application. And the other piece of advice that I would have is to embrace the social aspect of the program early. I didn't do that because I in the early days, I thought, well, I have to be competitive because everyone in here is going to be competitive, and I want to keep up with them. And so I avoided things like going to Georgetown and, doing social things in the beginning, and I'm regretting it now. And so if there are any prospective students who think that that's not something they enjoy, I would beg to differ on that. Yeah.
I love that advice. Make time for those things because 21 months goes very, very quickly. Jesse, piece of advice for our listeners?
Yeah, I guess I'd break it down to two things. I think one thing that I think everybody needs to understand is like imposter syndrome is a real thing. We're all meant to be in this program if we're here, but it can be challenging when you're surrounded from everything from talented nurses to accountants to attorneys to doctors to startup founders. So I think everybody needs to understand that you're here for a reason and you were chosen for a reason. You bring something to the table. So don't forget that. The second thing I would say is, don't lose sight of your family. A lot of us have spouses and kids and parents. Don't lose sight that they're going to be with you when they start the program, and you need to make sure you're with them when this program is over. So, take care of your families. Don't lose sight of setting aside time to do those little 3-day trips with, your wife and kids and make sure that they're feeling valued, because you're going to be, doing class from 6 to 9 o'clock. Sometimes you're going to miss family dinner. You're going to miss a kid's soccer practice. So, take care of those important things because they're going to be with you at the end.
And we just had a session last night with a couple of your classmates, as I mentioned. And one of the things that was shared there is to be really clear about your non-negotiables, those things that you want to make sure you're making time for, both within the program and also without of the program, right? Your family, other commitments that you have that are really important to you, put those things on your calendar, block that time out just to make sure that they're represented and kind of you carved out time to continue to stay engaged. I think it's really, really important for folks. And as you come into an MBA program, right, being very clear about what you want to get out of it and giving yourself space and time for that. So non-negotiables in both directions. Jesse, Lara, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks, Brett, for having us.
Thank you.
And that was my conversation with Jesse Kirk and Lara Myers, 2 students in our Executive MBA class of 2026. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's EXEC, MBA at darden.virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.